Formula Europe 2020 Champions Sunday. Today we've got 3 races for you to enjoy from the MECC Maastricht Arena and the Interclassics Maastricht. We're going to be racing at 2 p.m. at the Sebring School circuit in R Factor 2. We're driving the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car, and it's 3 races, 5 drivers and 1 huge prize pool at the end of the competition for the fastest over a points-based system across the 3 rounds. As I say, we're starting at Sebring School grid. Formation will be in a very short while. Once that race is over and done with, it's 25 minutes from a standing start. We'll be heading to the Nürburgring sprint layout for another 25-minute adventure between our 5 drivers, and rounding off at the beautiful Zandvoort Grand Prix circuit to end what's going to be 3 tense, hard-fought and fast-paced races as the drivers look to win their share of a prize pool of €10,000. We've got some very interesting performances that's been taking place so far. So our drivers, their qualification from December, drove in various races in order to get here to the live final at the Interclassics Maastricht. We've had a qualification already before we came on air, so we did a session at the Maastricht Street Circuit, which is a mod that you can download and drive yourself from the Steam Workshop, by the way, if you want to go over there and give it a try. And the times are incredible. We had 3 tenths, just under even 3 tenths for a second, covering the top 3 drivers. Some great performances out there on the circuit, and it was very interesting to see how close and competitive our competitors are going to be today. And speaking of the drivers, we'll run down quickly who we've got racing with us today on site live at the MECC Arena at Maastricht. We've got Hani Al-Sapti, Risto Capit, Jeremy Ballou, Ziggy Ciara and Jarl Teyen. All 5 of these drivers, even if I get my numbers right, all 5 of these drivers have already proven themselves to be very, very quick in December's qualification competition. So I'm incredibly intrigued to see how they perform across these 3 very different circuits, of course. Sebring School, which is on the screen now as the drivers are just competing in a quick warm-up session prior to the race starting. Very, very bumpy circuit, and of course the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car is a very loose race car as well, so taking to the bumps of the track, they've not really had much opportunity to sample this track in these cars and fine-tune those setups, so a little bit of an adventure into the unknown for our 5 drivers. And just for those of you watching at home, as well as a little bit of additional information, we're racing on site at the Interclassics Maastricht, but we've got 5 motion rigs, so our drivers are driving in full motion across one of the bumpiest racetracks in the whole United States, if not the world. So another added challenge. We've got a live audience here watching us from the auditorium in which we're taking place. The lights are on the drivers, the pressure, they can see the whites of each other's eyes, and of course there's a massive prize pool at the end of it, so big pressure for our drivers, and it'll be interesting to see how they adapt to the conditions that are in front of them today. A little bit about the competition before we get into the serious business of doing some virtual motor racing in just under 6 minutes time. First place in this competition will win €3,000 in cash and an adrenaline experience masterclass worth €450 and a set of Huskenveld Sim Pedal Sprint each competitor. Second will win €2,000 and third €1,000, and of course a set of Huskenveld Sim Pedal Sprint apiece. So there's a lot of money on offer, a lot of prestige on offer for what is the Champions Sunday of the Sim Formula Europe 2020. Now, I'm sure most of you already know this, but a little bit of housekeeping. We're using R Factor 2 for the simulation of choice for this evening or this day of eSport sim racing. We're using R Factor 2 Studio 397 circuits, the Sebring, the school layout, the Nürburgring sprint layout and the full Zandvoort Grand Prix course, and we're using the love it or loathe it Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. An excellent little race car, but as I've mentioned earlier in the broadcast, a little bit flighty, a little bit difficult over the bumps as we go to a quick replay on screen now at Jarl Tayen, see what happened here. Look at that sideways motion driving from the rear of the car as it points it into the corner. Will he maintain the slide, or is that going to spin him out of the course? Good car control there, actually. Tayen gets it back just about to the apex, but abandons that one. Not much more to be earned from there as we look at Risto Capet in the sister 911 GT3. So this is warm-up, folks. The race will be 25 minutes at the end of this session. We'll be doing a standing start, and again, a little bit of housekeeping. Weather conditions will remain sunny, so we're not having the spectre of rain hanging over our heads during this event. Watching now, Jeremy Bouteloup, very, very competitive driver, the Frenchman. We've seen already in practice being immediately on the pace. Sensible performance from Jeremy so far, really trying to set the car up for the longer runs. I've heard from the drivers earlier in the day that this is a very tyre-hungry car, is the 911 GT3 Cup. So we're expecting, or the drivers should I say, are expecting a difficult weekend of racing, very difficult to keep the car alive through the duration. It only feels like a short event, 25 minutes, but to quote one of our drivers as we look over at the motion rigs in action, it's a 25-minute endurance race. They'll be fighting against themselves, the pressure, the car, and of course each other out on circuit as we continue to watch Jeremy Bouteloup now on board with him, coming into T1. This is the Sebring Club Circuit, don't forget, so a little bit shorter than the full international venue as we turn into turn one, nice and steady, close to the wall, run the car to the outside but have to bring it back to the left hand side of the circuit as we enter into the school version, as Jeremy runs a little bit wide and really throws that lap away, but not important at this moment in time. This is simply just the warm-up prior to the first of 3 races that we'll be holding later on today. And as a matter of curiosity, as we head into the final 2 and a bit minutes time, Jeremy Bouteloup is currently quickest with a 104.8 second lap time, just under 2/10 ahead of Risto Capet as we ride on board now to look at that incident again that we saw on screen just a few moments ago. So plenty of curb there coming into the Le Mans section of corners. This is always a difficult corner, very important to get a good run onto the big long straight before we head into the incredibly difficult final turn, which is of course one that's caught many of us out over the years, the Sunset Corner. Now we're looking at Risto Capet, who's coming through said Sunset Corner, runs it out to the outside of the circuit, just about across the line. Can he improve on his lap time? No, he cannot. He maintains second position. Again, just to clarify, this is warm-up prior to the first race, so although lap times are nice, it's important to show outside your opponents. It doesn't count for anything because qualification has already taken place earlier in the day. Speaking of qualification, I'll run past the finishing positions for that one a little bit later on at the end of the warm-up, just as we're building up to go into our first of 3 races of the day here at the beautiful Sebring Club Circuit in our Factor 2. We head down now to the final 1 minute and 15 seconds of the day. To reiterate what I said earlier in the broadcast, we're live on site. We're at the Interclassics Maastricht event, so a beautiful classic car auction and show taking place below the arena in which we're performing in today. We're at the MECC Maastricht Arena, a fantastic venue. We've got quite a crowd now sat in the spectator seating in front of our stage, watching our eSport drivers give their all in this free practice session. As you see, Ziggy Sierra there driving absolutely on the limit, bouncing the 911 GT3 Cup car through the final turn, an incredibly difficult corner in the best of conditions. And this car, as many of you watching this stream will well know, is flighty, shall we say. A little bit keen to do things like that we see as he loses the back end but gathers it back together again. Not really lost much lap time there, has Sierra, but this is a wild ride for the driver at the moment, really struggling to keep the car on the tarmac, no doubt running heavy fuel as well to give him an impression of what the car will feel like during the 25-minute race that we're yet to have. And don't forget, folks, these guys are driving these cars in a motion rig as well, so the vibrations and the bumps will be even more dramatic for the eSport drivers. And that's the end of warm-up. So our first official televised session of the day comes to a close, and Sierra is quickest. And now we head into race conditions for the first of 3 rounds this weekend here at the Sim Formula Europe Champions Sunday Final. Big race for our drivers. We've got the green flag now. The race immediately starts. No warm-up lap there. The car's spread across the side of the circuit, looking to try and find a little bit of a gap. Only 5 cars on the track. As look on the inside there, and Sierra was under pressure for second position. Eventually losing now to Jeremy Woodloo in P2. So Risto Capek, clean start from the line, takes the lead, gets a little bit of an advantage across the field as everybody's fighting for position there. I see Sierra running a little bit wide onto the grass, kicks the dirt up but doesn't lose too much time to Alsapti behind him. Jan Thiel suddenly sat in the back of the 5-car train looking at what's happening in front of him, seeing if there's an opportunity, a space makes himself available as we see Alsapti running a little bit wide, manages to get it back together again, so not too much of a drama there, heading down the Ullman Straight into the final corner for the first time in a 25-minute race. We've got Risto Capek, fantastic start, perfect position at the beginning of the race, pulls a couple of tenths of a second out, looks to gently bring the car temperatures and tyres into the performance zone. It's a little bit further back there. Thiel now really pushing, trying to make up for his currently P5, but really charges hard against Alsapti. This is going to be a bit of a tight squeeze into T1 as both drivers now go back to single file formation through the difficult first corner. Very bumpy here, of course, as all of Sebring is, and Alsapti currently maintains that P4. Tian struggling in 5th behind him, trying to find an opportunity to make a move past the quick Dutchman, Hani Alsapti in 4th as Risto Capek now 8 tenths of a second in front of Jeremy Woodloo in 2nd. Fantastic opening salvo from Risto Capek there at the head of the pack. But it must be remembered, folks at home watching this, I've been informed these cars are very hungry on tyres. So although we've got nearly a second gap now for Capek as we're in coming to the conclusion of the second lap, it's also about not pushing too hard, too soon, burning up your tyres, burning up your grip, and then coming a cropper later in the race. We're flicking to a replay now actually from the beginning of the race. We see Tayan there running a little bit wide in the last corner, losing precious momentum coming down the longest straight on the Sebring Club circuit. But again, not too dramatic for the driver at the moment, only 6 tenths in arrears to Alsapti in P4. Sierra in no man's land a little bit in 3rd position at the moment, so he's got a 2.4 second gap to Woodloo now up in 2nd, pushing hard to try and close down that early gap earned by Risto Capek on the opening couple of tours of this beautiful but challenging Sebring Club circuit. We've got 22 minutes left on the clock, so already, folks, the first couple of 3 laps have gone by in a flash. Great to see everybody keeping it relatively clean, relatively smooth. It's important to get a race finish here in this championship. It's a points-based series, so 3 races, points for all 3 races, and the highest points finish at the end of the event will go on to win the big prizes. So a DNF or a low score will be very difficult to recover as we get a little bit of contact with the wall there from Tayan. That's very hair-raising moment there from Yal Tayan, but he manages to just about survive that contact. We've got 100% damage on during this race as well, so you don't want to be doing too many of those so early in the race, otherwise you may have a little bit of a problem later on. Look, very good from Tayan to be able to maintain the car on the track after that impact. It's a simple thing to do, something I'm sure we've all done before as well. It's a little bit too much front end, not quite realising the car's going to bite in as much as it does, missing a couple of those major bumps, and before you know it, a little bit of oversteer and you're in some strife. But Tayan lives to fight another day. He's only a second now away from Alsapti in P4 as we're riding on board with the Triple AD sports car of Risto Capek. Looking back now at the 1.2 second gap from Jeremy Woodloo, Risto Capek seems to be in a class of 1 so far in this race. The driver making a very good start from the beginning of the race, really pulling away from the cars in front, and it's a clever tactic to build yourself a little bit of a gap to the cars behind, allow your car a little bit of wiggle room to make a mistake, or as the car starts going off a little bit, just dial it back and not quite run it on the edge. It's very simple on a track like this to push too hard, find yourself facing the wrong direction before you know it, and then that is the end of not only your race, but pretty much your event in its entirety. As we're riding on board now with Butlu, looking at the Risto Capit Run 911 GT3 Cup in front, heading into one of the most important corners on the Sebring Club circuit as it precedes this incredibly long straight before you head down into the bumpiest and most difficult turn on the circuit, the final corner at sunset. As we're riding now, Tayan now unfortunately pirouettes the car coming out of one of the slower sections. That is a disaster for Yal Tayan then. Back of the field, really pushing hard to try and close up to Al Sapti and Ciara in front. And Tayan just loses the rear end of the Porsche. So simple to do in such a challenging car like this one. And that's put him now 8.2 seconds away from the next nearest cars. Again, he's sideways into the last turn. Got some dirty tyres, probably lost a little bit of pressure, a little bit of temperature as well. And Yaltail having a really difficult weekend, or difficult event, should I say, so far here at Sebring. But as I was alluding to earlier in the broadcast, this is a points-based championship, so P1 earns 20 points towards their overall score, P2 15, P3 11, 4th place takes 6, and 5th and final position is worth 6 points. If you do not finish, you do not score points. And in a 3-race championship, that's a very difficult position to recover from. So it's important now for Tayan maintain his composure, get back out on track, and let's see if he can recover any ground or make advantage from any accidents further up in the next 18.5 minutes that we've got left of this opening of 3 races here at the Sim Formula Europe Champion Sunday event at the Interclassics in Maastricht. Okay, looking at the front of the field now, so where again, this is where not the race as such, not the proximity of the two cars, but certainly where the pressure moments are, is between our race leader since the green light at the start of this event, Risto Capit, currently a 1.3 second, nearly 1.4 second gap to Jeremy Boulou in P2. These two drivers have both taken victories in the qualification event, so Capit managed to win the Tatus Formula 4 race, and Jeremy also had a successful qualification in the McLaren Senna. So two very, very different cars, but both drivers absolutely at the top of their game. Really charging away now from Ziggy Ciara in 3rd position. Ziggy dropping almost 5 seconds away from the front two drivers, and actually under increasing pressure as we ride on board with Annie Al Sapti, under increasing pressure from the Dutchman as Al Sapti is looking to make up a little bit of lost ground from earlier in the race, going through the final corner, keeping the line tight, showing that he's maybe got a little bit of grip left in his tyres, more than Ziggy Ciara does in front of him. And it's always easier to be the chaser than the chased, so it'll be very interesting to see how Al Sapti can close this gap down, and can he find somewhere to pass on a very short and very difficult on which to overtake circuit that is the Sebring Club track. This will be, the Sebring School circuit, should I say. And this is a lot of pressure now on Ziggy Ciara in front of him. He's going to maintain his own car, his own pace. He's clearly struggling for a couple of tenths of a second from the chasing car behind. And of course he's got to maintain a clean racing line, make sure he doesn't leave any open invitations, because we all have seen Annie Al Sapti racing before, I'm sure, and you leave even an inkling there's a gap, and the driver will use that to his advantage. So the pressure is all on Ziggy Ciara at this moment in time, currently trying to defend his 3rd place position. Meanwhile, further up the grid, the gap is broadly the same between Capit and Boulou in P1 and P2 positions, so just over a second and a 10 second, 1.1 seconds and change between the two drivers, fluctuating of course as you're braking and accelerating around this personally one of my absolute favourite circuits in motorsport, and certainly my favourite circuit in R Factor 2 is Sebring, very much a reference for sim racing venues, in my humble opinion, and a great place to excuse me, a great place to open up Champion Sunday here at Sim Formula Europe, which is, as I said earlier, a 3-round fight to the finish for the grand prize, and Risto Capit and Jeremy Boulou are doing a fabulous job of taking the early initiative here, as Ziggy Sierra now drops to 6.3 seconds away from the front of the field, although he has gapped Hani El Sabti a little now, so Hani dropping just over a second away from the car in front. That one is one to keep half an eye on as we continue to watch this fight at the very front of the field. Now there's a 5-point difference between P1 and P2, so a reasonable significant amount of points on offer. We've got a reverse grid coming for our second round at the Nürburgring Sprint Circuit, so it's more than just pride we've got on here. We've only got 3 races. We've got a point system that's been designed to encourage close finishing, to encourage close scores, and to encourage our drivers to really push for the outright race victory. So I don't think Butler at all has given up on the opportunity to take the fight to Risto Capit, and it'll be interesting to see if Risto's got enough in the locker actually to continue to fight against the charging Frenchman behind him now. Only has, so it's half the gap. While we've been speaking about this fight, Bourlou has halved the gap between himself and Risto Capit at the front, even more so now as they come out of the final turn, the sunset corner, onto the start-finish straight. These two cars now separated by 4-5 car lengths at the absolute most. We'll flick into a replay very quickly what's been happening here. This is a very artistic, very nice slow-mo of Risto Capit on the absolute edge of adhesion. Look at those bumps, folks. That looks significant, shall we say, on screen. You imagine doing that in a motion rig on a live event. There'll be some headaches at the end of this one, I am absolutely sure, but that's not slowing Risto Capit down at all, using all the curb, all the racetrack and more as he's trying to gap the car behind. But Jeremy Butler now really seems like he's got the bit between the teeth. The Frenchman really pushing hard. He's closed the gap to half a tenth of a second, and this sort of proximity to the car in front will bring him into slipstream territory. So Butler enjoying the benefit of the slipstream. These cars are reasonably aero independent, but it shouldn't be too significant, the dirty air into the not particularly quick section of corners that we have here at Sebring. So mechanical grip slightly more important than aerodynamic advantage, which is exactly what Butler needs to hear in a race like this one. He can get close enough in the corners, make advantage of the slipstream now as it really closes up onto the back of Risto Capit, heading into what will be the club circuit, sorry, I insist on calling it club, the school circuit link back into turn 14 of the main Sebring International Raceway track, the rejoiner. Jeremy Butler now, what does he do? Do you hold station? Do you suss out where your rival's fast and slow? Do you watch, try and put Capit under a little bit of pressure, make the driver in front make a mistake? Or do you grasp the pace advantage, the seeming pace advantage that you have with both hands, and absolutely put a move up the inside of the car in front? It's a very difficult balance to make as Capit locking the front tyres a little bit into sunset, but it manages to keep the car broadly on the line he wants it to do and gets a good run onto the start-finish straight. So that's the pressure starting to be felt now by Risto Capit on lap 13. As we're looking back now at the fight for P3, so Sierra and Halsapti also equally close for the final step of the podium from this first race of the season, but the action, the excitement really is at the front of the field between Capit and Butler. These two cars are separated by nothing more than enthusiasm and fresh air as Capit really got the car at the edge of the line now. From this perspective, from the outboard cameras that I can see here, it looks like Jeremy Butler has got a little bit of a more compliant car than Risto Capit in front, working a little bit less challenging and soaring at the steering wheel as he looks to make this challenge to P1. And another two cars separated by less than nothing is Sierra and El Sabti in P3 and P4. This one's been a slow burning fight, and El Sabti's been yo-yoing up and back again from the rear of Ziggy Sierra up front, but this will be another one where El Sabti gets it really sideways, really gets the car absolutely on the lock stops of the steering from T into P. That's the very Very exciting moment there for Anil Sapti. That's a little bit scary, a little bit on the edge there, but a fantastic catch of the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car on one of the most difficult and bumpy circuits on the corners on the circuit. As we flick to a replay, see that from outboard. Now look at the reactions of Anil Sapti here. Really does a fantastic job to keep the car. Actually didn't look quite as dramatic from the offboard as it did from the onboard, but let me assure you folks watching at home that in the cockpit, in the driver's seat, that would have been a very attention-grabbing moment for Hane as he pushes the car absolutely to the edge of the limit and tries to close down that gap, which is now stretched out to 0.8 of a second to Ziggy Sierra in P3 ahead. But fights everywhere you look, you see cars battling for position, and again we've got the front two nose to tail as Jeremy Butlew goes a little bit deep into sunset and just loses the advantage coming onto the start-finish straight. So a little bit disappointing there for Jeremy, a bit too hot on the brakes, a little bit too late as Capit again locks his front left wheel into T1. Entirely normal behaviour for turn one, so nothing that's going to concern Risto Capit unduly in the race leading Porsche, but again on a track and a car where tyre wear, where the pace is limited by tyre wear, Risto Capit might want to be a little bit more careful with the slowing down pedal on that 911 GT3 Cup as he gets a little bit squiddly on the throttle coming into the Le Mans section of corners. I think that is there as we head down the back straight, and once again a great circuit for racing is the Sebring School Track. It's a little bit shorter, well a lot shorter actually, than the international layout, which really keeps our drivers busy. We've only got 5 cars, I say only 5 cars, we've got 5 cars in the race, so the level, the speed of drivers is significant, and on a track like this there really genuinely is absolutely nowhere that you can let off and have a relax for a moment. And talking of not letting off, these two drivers at the front of the field continue to push and showing the way to the rest of the grid, despite fighting, despite a few sideways moments and a little bit more locking brakes than perhaps would be ideal. They've now managed to carve out a 10.5 second gap. Can you believe that, folks? With 8 minutes remaining, we've got a 10-second gap, or 10.5 second gap to Ziggy Sierra in P3, who remains under significant pressure from Hani Al-Sapte in 4th, while Jarl Teyen is in the pit lane, I believe. I've not quite seen that on screen, but Teyen, who's had a very challenging opening portion of the race, is in the pits now. Whether he's retiring the car or whether he's getting a fresh set of boots on, suffering too much from no doubt flat spots after his little pirouette earlier in the race, I don't know. I will keep my eye on that one and let you know as and when more information becomes available. But Teyen, regardless of what happens now, it's fair to say is out of the running for the big points prizes from this first race, but still very much in the throes of the Championship Challenge with 2 races left to go. This is a replay on board with Woodloop having a little bit of a look on the inside, keeping the car tight while Capit runs the wider outside line. A riskier outside line as well is the line that Capit took there. There's a very spicy bump at the edge of that corner, and if you hit that wrong, you're a little bit too far away from the apex, you've got a danger of being sucked into the tyre barrier at corner exit. But Risto Capit, a driver of his calibre, knows what he's doing there, taking a bit more risk perhaps, but still keeping it under control, as now Butlew is 0.7 of a second away from the race lead, but still very much in slipstream territory. And this, folks, is a little bit why Jeremy is a little bit further behind, so a little bit sliding, as is to be expected, into the Le Mans section of corners, but nothing significant there in the gap, and the fight remains for the final few minutes of the race as we're watching another replay now. Great to see these replays. That's Hane having a bit of a workout into the final corner, so Hani Al-Sapti really having to work hard behind the wheel of this 911 GT3 Cup car to try and keep it on the circuit, and keep it on the circuit at an incredibly impressive pace. Our drivers can make some setup changes to the car, so they will be accounting for the difficult conditions to a certain degree, but as always is the case with a car setup, there's a compromise between raceability and outright performance. and the level of pace shown by these drivers already so far through the time we've seen them in the sim and through the first 2/3 and change of this race is impressive. So yeah, there's no cruising going on here. This is absolutely on the limit of adhesion and on the limit of what is one of the more challenging cars in R Factor 2. This is the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car, which you can purchase from the R Factor 2 Steam store, so please do go and have a look if you've not already and give that a try as we continue to watch what's basically been a race-long fight for P3 between Al Sapti and Sierra on the looking for the final step of the podium. But both drivers showing plenty of composure so far. Ziggy Sierra's really not doing anything too dramatic with the car. He's avoiding locking tyres, he's hitting his braking points and his apexes and giving Al Sapti behind absolutely no options to be able to throw the car up the inside, making it very difficult for the Dutchman behind to force the issue and overtake Sierra for what will be, if he holds this position, P3 and 11 points, and Al Sapti will be looking at an 8-point reward for 4th. So it's worth continuing to fight in the final 4 minutes or so of the race to get those all-important extra points that we can carry on into the Nürburgring sprint race, which you'll be following on the hour after this event wraps up in another 4 minutes and 12 seconds. So if you're watching this and you're enjoying it, please do stay with us or join us for race 2 of the 3-race series, which will be taking place on the hour at 3 p.m. local time here in the Netherlands. But that's the future. This is now. Let's concentrate on what's happening on the 20th lap of the race. Capit up front has still got a half-second advantage over Bouteloup in third. In second. The fight for third place is now 12 seconds in arrears of the leaders, but is separated by nothing more than the imagination, basically. These two guys, Sierra and Al Sapti, we're not watching at the moment, but they're continuing to mirror what the two race leaders are up front, separated by half a second and change. And I get the feeling now that maybe Bouteloup is thinking, do I hold station behind Capit, see if I can pressure the leader into making a mistake and have a clean overtake, or do we save the car for a final throw of the dice in the last couple of laps of the race? Always a difficult balancing act to make, as we're on board with Al Sapti now as Sierra gets a little bit squiggly again. He does like the wider line and having a less intense turning and driving the car more to the outside of the final sunset corner does Sierra, compared to Al Sapti, who's still capable of keeping the car really tight into the final turn. Both cars seems to average out the advantage there for both drivers, as Al Sapti's getting a little bit squiggly under acceleration as they turn into the Skull circuit, so into the Bishop corner, which cuts off at turn 2 and links into the smaller, more technically challenging, I think you could argue, portion of the racetrack, through the Le Mans section of corners into, as I've said before, one of the most important corners on the circuit. Got to keep the car clean, not run too wide, and get a suitable run down the start-finish straight before we, not the start-finish straight, the back straight even, heading into the bumpiest, most difficult but also most exciting corner on the track, which is Sunset, and live to fight another day. So 2 minutes on the clock. Probably got another couple of laps before the checkered flag waves on this one, and the positions are Risto Capit is still your race leader, as he has been since the green flag waved at the start of this race nearly 25 minutes ago, but Capit now under more pressure than he has been for the last few laps from Jeremy Bouteloup in P2. Jeremy Bouteloup now really looking to see what he can achieve in the final, the dying embers of the race. Bouteloup's got a few tenths to make up, but if he can effect an overtake, that's 5 more points in his pocket heading into the halfway point of the series, which will be race 2 at the Nürburgring even sprint track following after this race comes to a conclusion. So again, both drivers on the absolute edge of performance. Capit again locking his front tyres now. That's going to be a difficult position for Risto Capit to maintain for the remainder of the race. It's a motion rig, so his cockpit's going to be vibrating significantly. The car is already incredibly loose on one of the bumpiest and most difficult tracks in R Factor 2, and Jeremy Butlew looks like he has saved some performance for the final throw of the dice on the last lap. Jeremy Butlew really looking to push hard and secure a late race victory in this one, but does Risto Capit have enough in his armoury to hold off the Frenchman for the victory, to maintain a race lead he's held right from the green flag? We've only got half a lap to find out now, folks, but 0.6 of a second, I think Capit's maybe got that one in his back pocket as we look back at the fight for P3. 13 seconds adrift of the race leaders. Hani Al Sapti again is also a little bit too far behind to really put Ciara under any significant pressure in the final few seconds of the race. Will Capit get to the start-finish time in time to start another lap? No, he will not. That will be a relief for Risto Capit, who drives absolutely superbly, crosses the finish line for a lights to flag victory. Beautiful win. The crowd erupt in applause, and Risto Capit is our first winner of the day. Beautiful performance there from Capit. Jeremy Butlew finishes P2. Ziggy Ciara manages to eventually hold off and finish in third position, with Hani Al Sapti fighting close behind, and sadly for Yael Tayan, he's retired from the race in final position in fifth, and DNF after that difficult, challenging opening start to what's going to be a really exciting weekend, folks. So I hope you really enjoyed that one. This is to reiterate, we're live at the Maastricht Arena for the Interclassics. We've got a beautiful stadium with people over spectating as they're watching our drivers in the motion rigs. The setup, it's really beautiful. Have a look on the Studio 397 social media for some images of what we've been getting up to over the last few days, and the setup that we've got running here looks great. The on-track product was also really enjoyable. Sebring Sprint, no, it's not Sprint, Paul. Stop saying it's Sprint, it's School. Sebring School Trike, as always, brings a fantastic race event. And Risto Capit was the guy that capitalised the most out of the field to take the first race victory of our three-race championship Champion Sunday final here at Sim Formula Europe 2020. That's 20 points in Risto Capit's back pocket, heading into the next round at Nürburgring, which will be live and exclusive on the Studio 397 YouTube channel at 3 p.m. So not long to go. Our drivers will just have a quick refreshment break. We'll reset the server up for the new track, and stay tuned. Hello, everybody. Sorry for the delay. We are suffering a couple of little delays. Give us about 5 minutes or so, and then we will be going live with the second of three rounds at Sim Formula Europe 2020. 5 more minutes, and race two from the Nürburgring Sprint will be starting. Thank you for your patience, and we'll see you in a minute. Hello everybody and welcome back to Sim Formula Europe 2020, live here from the Interclassics at Maastricht. How you all doing? Thank you for sticking with us if you have done since the slight delay from the end of race 1, and welcome to all our new viewers that are tuning in for the second of 3 races at the Champions Sunday here at Sim Formula Europe. We've moved on now, so the first race was a bit of a nail-biter at the Sebring School Circuit, a very close race, not so much passing in terms of door-to-door handle fights, but some real tension between the front 2 drivers. Risto Capet, who eventually came home with the full 20 points for P1, followed by Jeremy Bouteloup in second position, often as we see Jeremy now on screen in warm-up for round 2 at the Nürburgring sprint format circuit. So yeah, race 1, real good event, thoroughly enjoyed myself. I hope you guys and girls at home did as well. And now we're into warm-up for the second of 3 rounds in this Super Sunday Champions final race weekend of the Sim Formula Europe 2020, live from the MECC Maastricht Arena here in the Netherlands. I'm Paul Jeffrey, as I was in the last race, and I'm going to be taking you, and talking you even, should I say, through the second event of the season. 5 minutes, 50 seconds left in terms of warm-up, and then we will be going into another 25-minute race. We'll be doing a standing start, as we did last time around, and the points will be the same as they have been, as Bouteloup just pirouettes the car in practice, catches a little bit too much of the gravel, spins it round to the inside of the chicane, but no harm, no foul. It's only warm-up. This is the chance for our drivers just to get reacquainted with their cars and a little bit accustomed to the Nürburgring sprint circuit, which will be hosting race 2 on in just a few short minutes' time. We're using the Porsche Carrera 911, no we're not, we're using the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car once again for this event, so get ready for some spicy driving. The car's very difficult to control over long distances, it's very tail happy and hungry on its tyres, so be interesting to see how our drivers cope at the Nürburgring sprint circuit. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to start the second race of the day at the Nürburgring Sprint, so we cut practice short a little bit due to make up some delays that we've experienced on site, and the lights go green. We've got a very good start from P2, Hani Al Sabti, reverse grid from from the first race. Al Sabti up the inside of Yaltayan. Can Al Sabti manage to meet his braking point? He does. He gets a little bit of tap from Bouteloup, the car behind. Al Sabti manages to keep the car on the circuit. Bouteloup now on the outside in the suboptimal line through the Mercedes arena, but he manages to keep the car on the track, still on the outside now of Yaltayan in second position. They touch each other ever so slightly, but both cars survive. Tayan tries to close down the inside of the second part of the corner, is unsuccessful in doing so and runs wide onto the AstroTurf. There'll be no grip to be found on there, and that exposes Tayan to Ciara now behind, who's got the inside line as the circuit loops back into the Grand Prix configuration. Once again, this is a great drive from Tayan as he tries to maintain position from Ciara behind, and he does so, but that's going to cost him. That's a fantastic save there by Tayan, but he loses momentum, exposes him to an opportunity for Tayan to pass. Tayan on the outside of this fast right-hand kink, but that'll become the inside for the NGT chicane. Will Tayan be brave enough to spot the braking point a little bit later than the car in front? And Ciara now bounces over the curves, makes contact with Yaltayan, spins Ciara around. If the loser in that situation manages to avoid stalling the car and keeps going. Tayan now, Yaltayan in P4 is the other car involved in the incident, but he's managed to clear the immediate danger, and retains his 4th position, but a little bit spicy. 2 cars into space for 1 just do not go, and sadly for Ciara, that was the loser in that situation. As we look at the replay here again, but I think we've missed the moment now actually, so Ciara struggling at the back of the field following a very strong P3 in race 1. A disappointing start to the second round for Ziggy Sierra in the attractively liveried blue and white Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. A little bit of a case of too many cars with too little tarmac, and sadly somebody has to lose out, and in this instance that was Ziggy Sierra in P5, but still only 3.9 seconds away, 4 seconds now away from the pack. So a long 22.5 minutes for Sierra, I'm afraid, is in front of him. But looking at the front of the field, during all that excitement, we've missed Hani Al Sabti taking the race lead in his 911 GT3 Carrera. I will keep saying Carrera, the 911 GT3 Cup car. Hani Al Sabti leading from a very wild Jeremy Butloop in P2. P2 was also Jeremy's finishing position at Sebring last time out, so the Frenchman is going great guns at the start of this race to try and close down the gap to Al Sabti in front, and Risto Capit keeping a watching brief, 1.5 behind in third position as we watch Jeremy Butloop again getting all over the curbs at the NGT chicane, but NGK chicane even, but again a little bit leery, a little bit dangerous with low tyre pressures and cold tyres and brakes, and a car that's skittish at the best of times, but Butloop survives and remains absolutely glued to the back of Hani Al Sabti in the race lead at the moment. Risto Capit, our round 1 winner, currently holding station in third position, a further 1.1 seconds behind the front 2 cars, and Risto Capit showed good speed and composure in the opening round, so it'll be very interesting to see if Capit's got enough in the locker to close the gap to the cars in front and make this a 3-way fight for race victory. Meanwhile, Jarl Tienen is in P4, just 1.4 away from the chasing pack, so Jarl's managed to survive remarkably well considering the opening lap shenanigans between himself and Ziggy Sierra. So 4 cars still in contention, Sierra a little bit further back in fifth, 3.6 away from the race lead, but still entirely in with a shout of closing up some points and consolidating his third place finish from the opening round. But let's go back to the front 2 cars. Once again, we've got Hani Al Sabti in our race lead, just a fraction of a second in front of Jeremy Butloop in P2. Butloop finished second last time out at Sebring, so he'll be keen to consolidate that position and, if possible, push on a little bit further, take the lead and take the extra 5 points that come with it, as Al Sabti looks very, very clean into the opening Yokohama S and then into the Mercedes arena, not giving any ground to the chasing Porsche behind. But these are risky times for both drivers. The car's still relatively cold, the drivers are still very much getting their head into the space to go esports sim racing here at the Nürburgring sprint track. Another short but somewhat difficult track to pass on, although a much smoother experience for our drivers than they had last time out at Sebring. The bumps are far less pronounced. This is a Formula 1 grade facility that we're racing on, so semi-billet table, smooth surface, if you like, is presented to our esporters in their Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars, as it appears that Butloop's not quite got enough pace to get upon the back of Al Sabti into the chicane. Tries to make up for that by monstering the curves on both parts of the chicane, and the car seems to be compliant enough to accept that one. Is not losing too much time, there's not too much bounce on the exit of the NGK chicane, but maybe this has turned into a 3-race fight, a 3-car fight for the lead now, as Risto Capit is using the opportunity of these 2 guys squabbling in front to close very rapidly on the 2 leading cars. So this is now a 3-way fight for the race victory. With 18 minutes and 45 seconds left on the clock, this is going to be very tense for both drivers, and Jeremy Butloop being the meat in the 2 Porsche sandwiches here, as he's looking to attack Al Sabti in front, but is very mindful. A race 1 winner and his current main rival for the overall championship points victory, Risto Capit, playing the hunter-gatherer in the background in P3, watching cleanly what the two cars in front are doing, see if an opportunity develops himself, as we see, sadly, Jarl once again in the pit lane. So that's 2 from Tayan. Jarl Tayan retiring from this race. He was at the time in P3, but there we got a very simple thing to do in a Porsche. Just lose the back end of the cars and settle a little bit greedy on the throttle, and that's a 360 and the end of his race and pretty much the championship as well. So sad result for Jarl Tayan, but a valiant effort nonetheless. But 2 retirements from 2, it's impossible to come back from there, as we again, best seats in the house for this race as Risto Capit in 3rd place, separated from the front 2 cars by nothing more than enthusiasm. Risto Capit watching the race unfold, trying to see if an opportunity develops, looking after his car, keeping his tyres in condition for a push later on, shows his nose up the inside of Jeremy Butlew, but nothing's going there, too far back. Not enough overrun for Capit to seriously consider an overtake, but just giving the car in front something to think about, something to occupy his mirrors, which perhaps was not the best tactic. I don't think. Maybe it's worth Capit dropping back a little, letting these 2 race leaders fight it out, and when they slow each other down, that's the opportunity to come in and nip into any gaps that develop. But in the heat of competition now, all 3 drivers pushing to their absolute limit. Ziggy Sierra currently 4th and the last of the runners in the field, but 5.7 seconds adrift now, so Sierra very much looking to cruise round, pick the points up and see if that's going to make a difference in the overall scores a little bit later on in the race. But these 3 now separated by mere fractions of a second. It looks like Butlew's got a little bit of a slipstream from Al-Sapti in front, but is it enough to get alongside into the chicane? No, not quite, but keeps it again. Jeremy Butlew really using the curves to the absolute extreme in a bid to get some more speed, and there's a little bit of a gap developed there. Capit thinks about it, but thinks better of it. Not quite a Porsche-sized gap. Risto Capit keen on the brakes there to avoid making contact with Jeremy Butlew, and that's clever bit of driving from Capit there. Would give the car in front something to think about, but not risking too much, especially considering his strong opening race of the event, as the Porsche in front runs a little bit wide. Is wise as Butlew there to the inside of the corner, keeps the car firmly planted to the side of the curb, leaves no space for Capit. Capit looks to the outside, to no avail. Again into the second part of the Mercedes arena. There's absolutely nowhere for Risto Capit to place his Porsche 911 GT3 Cup, and the positions remain 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Hani Al-Sapti at the front, perhaps not quite got the pace he would hope to make a gap, while these 2 cars continue to fight tooth and nail, as Capit gets a little bit too friendly with the outside curb there, but survives and keeps the car on the grey stuff, which is where it needs to be. But these guys, look at the concentration there in the rig. That's the motion rig, that's the cars. You can see how much concentration, how much movement, how much effort's going in behind the wheel. It is not it's not an easy game, is this? It's not an easy thing to go e-sport racing, as again we come into the chicane. A piddly little chicane there, but the 2 cars behind really making the most of the curves. Both cars seem comfortable enough, if that's the right way of putting it, over the curbing at the chicane, and Hani Al-Sapti trying to keep it clean, keeping it neat, not taking any unnecessary risks, which is the right thing to do in these scenarios, because Butlew and Capit are really at each other's throats at the moment, looking one way, then the other. There's just no space for Capit to get the car down the inside, thinks about it, comes away from the manoeuvre there wisely, not enough room, and that's only ever going to turn into an accident. But Risto Capit now really lasts the late breakers, locks the wheels, gets the car sideways, does a fantastic job to keep it on the track. A very optimistic move from Risto Capit, never really on there, and that could have been disaster for both drivers, but Risto Capit just manages to keep his car on the circuit. Jeremy Butlew a little bit, that'll have drawn some attention to him, but there we go. Look, very late braking in a low braking corner, so that's not really a traditional overtaking manoeuvre. Didn't really have the overlap. That was actually a little bit risky and a little bit leery from Risto Capit. A little bit of desperation starting to sink in with the driver. He'll be entirely conscious that in round 1 he won from Jeremy Butlew. So Butlew needs these points for P2. It's 15 points on offer. P3 there's 11. So by my awful mental arithmetic, if the positions stay as they are, Capit will have a 1 point advantage heading into the third and final round at Zandvoort after the end of this one. So if Risto Capit can find a way past the Frenchman in front, that would be a handy points advantage heading into the last race. But we've still got 12 minutes 56 seconds left on the clock, folks. Anything could happen. And interestingly, the fight for first, second and third has allowed Ziggy Sierra to close the gap to 4.3 seconds. So we wrote Sierra off at the beginning of the race following his initial contact, but Ziggy Sierra in and around the 3.5 to 4 second marker may still have a part to play in this race heading into the final 12 minutes and change of what's been a frantic and very exciting second round of Sim Formula Europe. 9 laps completed and Hani Halsapti continues to lead this race. It's been a pretty quiet affair for Hani. He's managed to pull away at the beginning, allowed Butzloop and Risto Capit to fight each other for second position. So Halsapti's used the advantage to gain 9 tenths now at the front of the field as we see a live overall standings of where the drivers are after round one. Risto Capit, as we mentioned earlier, race winner, 20 points. Jeremy Butlou in 15 points in P2. Ziggy Sierra, who's having a nightmare event in fourth at the moment, was rounded out our podium at Sebring, and Hani Halsapti was currently leading and on for a 20-point haul if positions remain the same into the second half of the race. Finished fourth last time out, and sadly Yaltayan is picking up the DNFs as if they're going out of fashion and has 2 from 2. So Yaltayan now sadly just racing for pleasure and pride. Very, very little chance of scoring big in the championship with just 1 race point scoring opportunity left on the board for him. But now back to the race itself. Hani Halsapti remains in P1 from Jeremy Butlou in second, 1 second to the good, with Risto Capit a further 1.2 behind in third. Capit's challenge now somewhat fading compared to the earlier tight fight at the front of the grid. So Risto Capit either allowing his car to calm down, allowing his tyres to come back into temperature, just bringing himself under control for a late push in the race, or maybe the cars in front, now they've broke free of that side-by-side racing, have got a little bit more pace here at the Nürburgring Sprint Circuit, and Capit struggling, struggling a little bit in third. Ziggy Sierra remaining P4, of course, now 5 seconds in arrears. So Sierra just enjoying the motion rig and enjoying the simulator and the competition, and just bringing himself around the field in order to pick up. Fourth place is still 8 points, vital championship points in terms of the overall finishing order. Of course, for those of you that didn't see the first broadcast, P1 gets €3,000, P2 €2,000, and our final overall podium finisher €1,000. So there's still a lot to play for Sierra in the overall championship standings, and there's a heck of a lot to play for in this race as Jeremy Butlou really closing the gap down now to Hani Halsapti. Jeremy Butlou really got the bit between the teeth as he gets a little bit of rear end, a little bit overexcited rear wheel drive car. This of course 485 brake horsepower, so there's a lot of horses being pushed down to those fat rear tyres, and Butlou does a good job actually to maintain his momentum going forward after what was a very spicy moment for getting the rear of the car out of control. But he remains in the fight for this hard fought. I mean, I must admit, Hani Halsapti has not had to defend as such, but he cannot afford to make a single mistake in this race. Hani Halsapti, the second he misses a braking point, misses an apex, runs a little bit wide into a corner, he's gonna be mugged by the 2 cars behind as Risto Capit starts to buy back into the fight again. Risto Capit, having dropped 1.3 seconds from the cars in front, is now close to within 0.4 of a second and is currently on a very quick lap as he closes the 2 in front of him down. Here is a replay of Risto Capit into the chicane, precision driving there, monster in the curb, getting the Porsche 911 GT3 onto 2 wheels. But Capit, he's not been afraid to play nicely with the curbs during the course of this race, and it looks like driver and car can cope with these conditions. So Risto Cappi on the edge of what is possible in this car and track combination as we're looking forward from the driver's cockpit now into the fight for P1 at front. So Jeremy Bouteloup really pushing hard as he possibly can. Hani Al Sapti seems like he's got a little bit of time in his pocket as we see Al Sapti's rig now in the picture-in-picture. That's Hani in the grey car, or the grey motion rig. Absolute precision focus from the Dutch driver as he looks to maintain his race lead and take a nice handful of points from the Nürburgring sprint. But as we say in that, Jeremy Bouteloup absolutely on the edge of what is possible, really closing down now, looking to get a slipstream up into the chicane. This is a difficult Mickey Mouse corner if ever there was one, and more often than not it causes strife than good racing. But there you go, you see Jeremy Bouteloup's really got the ability to monster those curbs in a way that Al Sapti does not look confident in doing, and that's giving lap time to the Frenchman in second position. So that's one that we need to keep our eye out for. Not traditionally an overtaking spot is the chicane, but with the kind of pace overlap that Bouteloup has over Al Sapti, as Risto Cappi shows his nose, shows his intention up the inside in third, that forces Jeremy to run a little bit wide. We've been in this position before, so he knows to defend the inside of the Mercedes Arena second section of corners, run it wide to the outside, leave Cappi with no opportunity to make an overtaking manoeuvre. But we've already seen Risto Cappi is not afraid to put his car where you wouldn't expect it to be, so this is by all means still very much in the throes of a difficult race battle for these three, and that allows Al Sapti to get the pedal to the metal a little bit and step away from the fight for second position, which is a good opportunity now for Al Sapti to start building a gap heading into the final 6 minutes of the race and put himself in a safe distance from any last minute lunges or desperate moves from the drivers behind. And Risto Cappi now doing his usual, getting the slipstream, coming up into the chicane. Watch on the screen now as he monsters the curves, the two cars in front. So look at that, both cars absolutely taking every square inch of road and curbing they possibly can to close the gap down to Hani Al Sapti in front. But interestingly, both second and third place men have a different line into the final corner than Al Sapti, which seems to be a little bit compromised coming down what's the largest straight on the track. So Al Sapti uses this opportunity, a mixture of line, consistency and setup, allows him to get a little bit of a run coming into the Yokohama S's, but Al Sapti locks the wheel, gets the rear end a little bit loose coming into the Mercedes Arena, and that closes the gap back up again. So there's no point talking, folks. In tenths of a second, you can see on the screen these cars are separated by virtually nothing, and anything could happen in the final 5 minutes of the Sim Formula Europe Round 2 from the Nürburgring Sprint Circuit. Lap 14 now, Hani Al Sapti still retains race lead. Risto Cappi, our race 1 winner, is in third position, and in the middle of these two identically liveried Porsches is Jeremy Bouteloup, who's doing everything he can to defend and everything he can to attack, and that's the most uncomfortable man in the whole Maastricht Winter Classics, because Jeremy can't afford to make a mistake now. He's really taken liberties a little bit with the curbs into the formerly named VL chicane. Now NG chicane as Risto Cappi looks up the inside, thinks better of it. That's a very difficult place to effect an overtake, not a wide part of racetrack, and Cappi shows his nose. He's showing that he's willing to investigate certain parts of the track others wouldn't be, but it's still a risky move, and thinks better of it as he's looking late on the brakes into T1. Not got quite enough of an overlap to show the inside line, but Lou in front manages to keep the car stable, manages to be on the optimum racing line, and there's no place once again for Risto Cappi to make an overtake. But Jeremy Bouteloup doing a fabulous job to soak up the pressure from behind, and it is pressure. There is significant amounts of pressure. He's got your eye on the mirrors while still trying to put Hani Al Sapti in P1 under enough pressure to try and sneak a victory in the final 3.5 minutes, folks. Can you believe there's only 3.5 minutes left? This one's gone like lightning. It's been a superb showcase of what esports and motor racing can be here at the Sim Formula Europe Champions Sunday. Round 2 or 3, so don't forget, as Jeremy runs a little bit wide, doesn't lose any momentum, fortunately for him, so Capit's not got enough of an overlap to look at a serious overtaking move into the chicane, so that's good news for Jeremy as we see the replay now just drop a rear wheel on the gravelly AstroTurf at the exit of the corner, but that could have been really quite frightening. But actually a front and a rear wheel. Look at the suspension compress over the curbs there. Really nice shot of R Factor 2 in action, but Lou needs to regather some composure there. That would have been closer than would be comfortable for the Frenchman. And speaking of closer than comfortable, Risto Capit now looking to rub a little tattoo into the back of his of Lou's Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car, under braking into the Yokohama S, going through the Mercedes Arena. One of the finest points to spectate a motor race at the Nürburgring is this section of circuit. Really good views in the grandstands of the cars through a good proportion of the track, but that's no concern whatsoever to all three of these esport drivers as they continue to continuing a race-long fight for the race victory. Speaking of drivers, Ziggy Sierra remains in P4, so he's kept with it. That's good for Ziggy. He's got a few more points to put in his pocket heading into the final round, and Jarl Teyen, as we've already spoken about, sadly has retired from the second race in a row in his Porsche, so Teyen now out of the running for a big result here at Champions Sunday at Sim Formula Europe. Both Porsches in second and third, once again getting well acquainted with the curb into the Mickey Mouse chicane, the NGK chicane at the end of the lap, and 1 minute 17 left on the clock, folks, so we've got potentially 2 laps left of this second of 3 rounds for the Sim Formula Europe here at the Interclassics Maastricht in the Netherlands, as Al Sapti keeps it clean, a little bit further away from the apex than he would have liked into the first corner, but that's fine, that will do. That keeps the car in the middle of the circuit. There's no real opportunity for Butlu to find a way past what must be the world's widest Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car here this weekend. Risto Capit a little bit further back as well than he would like in these final throw of the dice in round 2. Capit's been quick, he's taken a few chances, but never quite enough as he loses the rear end of the car a little bit through the link into the short circuit, losing another couple of fractions of a second, which are critical as Butlu there gets the power down to slide the rear end wonderfully, and he's looking to get, this is the last opportunity, ladies and gentlemen at home, so keep your eye out now. Do we have a do or die manoeuvre into the chicane on what will definitely be the final lap, or is it Hani Al Sapti converting a fantastic race start into a race win? Jeremy Butlu getting all the curb but not quite enough momentum to get up behind Al Sapti into the final turn. All 3 drivers keep it clean, keep it close to the racing line, and Hani Al Sapti is the second winner of our second round of Sim Formula Europe. Again, applause from the watching crowd who appreciate a fantastic race spectacle when they see it. Hani Al Sapti soaked up everything his rivals could give him and more to take an impressive race victory. Jeremy Butlu in second position, Risto Capit bringing up the podium in third. A great drive from Risto as well, not quite enough in his pocket to effect an overtake on the cars in front, and in fourth, Ziggy Sierra recovering from a disastrous opening lap. What a great race. So that's 2 of 3 down. Hani Al Sapti taking the race victory, consolidating a solid opening 4th position at Sebring, and I enjoyed every second of that one, folks. I hope you guys did at home. We've got one more race still to go at 4 p.m. local time here in the Netherlands, which will be at, suitably enough, Zandvoort, so please do either stay on the broadcast or come join us at 4 o'clock, and we'll look forward to crowning our champion of the Sim Formula Europe 2020 Champion Sunday. Race 2 was an absolute classic. Let's hope we can have the same again next time. Thanks very much. Stay with us, and we'll catch you at the next race, 4 p.m. local from Zandvoort. Thank you. Hello everybody and welcome back to the final of Champion Sunday Sim Formula Europe 2020 at the Interclassics at Maastricht. My name is Paul Jeffrey and I am about to talk to you about the third and final round of a three-race, one-day only Champions Final here at Sim Formula Europe 2020. We've been to Sebring School Circuit and we had a tense fight for the top positions. We then moved on at 3 PM to the Nürburgring and the sprint configuration for what was an immense sim racing event where the top three drivers were separated by nothing more than good fortune and willpower. Brilliant race, and that leads us on quite wonderfully to the third and final round of the series. We're at Zandvoort, of course, because we're in the Netherlands and Zandvoort is the biggest track over here in the Netherlands, host to a Formula 1 Grand Prix for the first time this season as well, and we're using the current laser scan version of the former layout of the Zandvoort Grand Prix circuit in R Factor 2. It's a 25-minute race, as it has been all day long. There's 100% damage in dry weather conditions, but what makes this one special, ladies and gents, is look at the overall points table. Risto Capit is your current leader on 31. Jeremy Bouteloup is on 30 points, and a further two further back is Race 2 winner Hani Al Sapte on 28. Ziggy Sierra on 19, just a little bit further away in fourth. And with a series where 20 points is available for your race winner, 15 for second, 11 for third, 8 for four and 6 for five, this championship is far from over, heading into the last race of the three-race weekend. We've got just a few more seconds, 58 to be precise, of warm-up left to run before we get into a lights-out situation on what's been a fabulous fabulous Sim Formula Europe 2020 event, and I've loved every second of it. It's been a great 3 races long, been fabulous performance from all of our drivers, and this is going to be a final to look forward to. Absolutely everything left to play for from the top 3 drivers. We've got I think it's fair to say a difficult circuit on which to pass. We're using the full Grand Prix configuration, of course, so we've got one or two really key overtaking opportunities, one of which is potentially you're coming to at this moment in time. Famous, of course, for a World Touring Car shunt with title contender at the time, Van Muller, a couple of years ago, but that's a possibility should the driver in front leave enough of a gap to their chasing rival. But I think anything could happen here. We're doing a reverse formation start from the last race, so Risto Capit with a 1 point advantage in the championship standings has got a lot of risk that he needs to take if he's got to work his way to the front of the field. Jeremy Bouteloup in second position, so he's only 1 point away. Now, the way that points are structured, that basically means he needs to finish in front of Risto to be in with a shout, and Ziggy Sierra, who's had a very difficult weekend up to press, starts on pole from that man Risto Capit in second position. So Ziggy's got to get a good clean start as the lights go green, and he does indeed get a clean start very quickly to the inside to defend into Tarzan on the opening lap. Risto Capit in second position, hold station, but Jeremy Bouteloup round the outside of Tarzan, too much pace, and that's a disaster for Bouteloup. He runs off onto the gravel at the exit of Tarzan. Jeremy Bouteloup right the way down to the rear of the field immediately. A big risk moment as Capit loses the back end, manages to control the car and leaves himself vulnerable to teammate Hani Al Sapte behind. Hani Al Sapte has got to have a big point scoring weekend, big point scoring race should I say, in order to give himself an opportunity to win this Sim Formula Europe Championship here at Zandvoort, and he didn't quite manage to take advantage there. Risto Capit also taking some risk, but heartbreak for Jeremy Bouteloup on the opening lap. A big risk manoeuvre round the outside at Tarzan on lap 1. Didn't pull off for the Frenchman, but saying that, he's still only 6/10 away from the field, so there's still some opportunity to close back up should the opportunity present itself for Jeremy Bouteloup. As you can see him there at the back of the shot, as third place Hani Al Sapte locks a wheel but stays on course for completing what's been an already rather intense opening lap of the final race of what's been an incredible Champions Sunday here at Maastricht. Anyway, back now to Jeremy, the guy that, as we saw, a little bit enthusiastic into the breaking point in T1, currently in 5th position. 5th is last position. He does not need this in order to take the title, but he'll be looking to quickly make up ground on the cars in front, the first of which is Jarl Teyen, who's had a very disappointing event so far. 2 retirements from 2 races, so Jarl's a little bit less experienced in close wheel-to-wheel combat than his rivals in this event due to the troubles he's experienced so far. So can Jeremy Boudlou take the opportunity to throw a pass up the inside or the outside even of Jarl Teyen in the early stages of the race before they get too disconnected from the fighting at the front of the field, currently headed by Ziggy Sierra, having his best race so far in the 3-race series that we've seen. So Ziggy a little bit too little too late, I'm afraid, I would imagine, for the driver, but nevertheless a very composed opening couple of laps here at the Zandvoort Grand Prix circuit. As we see, we're watching Jarl Teyen now really wringing the neck of that 911 GT3 Cup car and maybe taking a few too many chances. Actually, at this stage he'll be heating the tyres up much more than his rivals in front and behind, but Jarl continues to push as we watch a replay now, no doubt, of that beautiful sideways moment. Let's see. Yeah, beautiful slow motion shots there of Jarl Teyen, really taking the car to the edge of the circuit. A very dangerous place there as the track runs away from you a little bit. It's very difficult, very easy, should I say, to run a little bit too wide, get onto the grass and then head straight to the scene of the accident. But Teyen manages to survive that time and has dropped a few tenths of a second to the cars in front. So this is critical now for Boudlou to get past Jan Teal in front and close himself down to the pack in front. There's a danger of a gap starting to form that will be very, very difficult when everybody's racing at this level to bridge that sort of gap. As we look at Sierra now locking a front wheel into Tarzan, but nothing significant there as the car lightens over the crest. The inside wheel is prone to locking, and Sierra will have absolutely no concerns about that one at this moment in time, but Risto Capit smells an opportunity as he continues to meticulously chase down the car in front, 5 seconds in arrears at this moment in time. So, Ziggy Sierra currently leading the race by 5 tenths of a second from Risto Capit. Risto currently a further 5 tenths in front of Hani Al-Sapti in P3. Jan Teyen having a much better race than he has done so far, it is fair to say, in 4th position, just holding off by a fraction under a second Jeremy Boudlou, who's paying a heavy price for an opening lap struggle into Tarzan, as we're looking now at Capit looking to make his first attempt at the race lead so far. Can't do it into the chicane, decides better of it for the second part, which is sometimes an overtaking opportunity around the outside of the part 2 into this very quick right hand corner, but that's not an opportunity for him today. He's forcing the car in front to go defensive, which will hopefully bring him a quicker run onto the start finish straight, but it does not on this occasion as Risto Capit drops a little bit further behind. The cars all evenly spaced from 1st to 5th position, much like we've seen many a time at Zandvoort in real life, as Hani Al-Sapti starts to buy into the fight in front. Going to a replay now for a moment. What we're looking at here, we're riding on board with Risto Capit, looking back now at his fellow esport teammate Hani Al-Sapti Risto Capit even. So, I got all that wrong, let's ignore it and carry on. Risto Capit is second and he's fighting Ziggy Sierra in front for race victory. A little bit wide into the quick uphill section, that puts him out wide onto the grass, but he manages to survive as he gets the car turned in and he's only lost a couple of tenths of a second at the absolute outside. So a little concentration moment there for Risto Capit will keep him really alert. Let's watch again on a replay. You see, the problem goes wrong here where he runs a little bit wide, takes a little bit too much curb on the inside of the corner, which pushes the car again out to the outside for the second section of what is one of the more difficult parts of the Zandvoort circuit. Look at it as it bounces there. That's Al Sabti we're looking at actually, as it bounces on the rear. Beautiful shots of R Factor 2, and if that doesn't get the driver's attention, nothing will. So that'll reaffirm that this race is there to be won, but it's also there to be lost. So you need to be a little bit cautious, because there are big prizes at the end of this one, and a DNF or a spin or a costly mistake at this stage can have a significant impact on your overall championship finishing positions, as Ziggy Sierra continues to soak up all the pressure at the front of the field, locking up again into Tarzan, as does Capit behind him. But both drivers, that's again part of what's to be expected into that turn in these kind of cars. A very difficult car is the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup in R Factor 2. A very lively car, a very rear driven or rear traction limited car is the 911. It's 485 brake horsepower, 3.8 litre rear driven, so there's a lot of noise and performance coming out of that machine, and when you're driving it at this sort of level, at this sort of speeds, absolutely, hopefully for the drivers, mistake free, it becomes a very spicy experience. For those of you that are just tuning in for the third race and have missed our first couple of events, to let you know, our guys are racing live on stage at the Interclassics Maastricht, or the MECC Arena, and they are driving in motion rigs, which is something you don't see all too often in live esports events, as Capit really gets the power down and gets the car sideways coming into the chicane. So Capit absolutely on the limit of what is possible as he heads into the Hans Ernst chicane. So Capit looking to capitalise on what could potentially be a little bit more speed in his Porsche. Capit's been on form, the four-man, some could argue, of the three-race series that we've had so far on site. But we know from first to last position, these guys are very, very fast drivers, and everybody's holding nothing back. As you see, that little picture-in-picture now of the motion rigs in action, looking over one of the beautiful real-life Porsche GT3 Cup cars that we've got on stage with us today. A gorgeous car and a gorgeous sim. Really been some entertaining racing so far, and these guys are, as I've said many a time, but it's worth saying again, on the absolute limit now, as Jeremy Butlu has made up a place due to Jarl Teyen's retirement. So I've not quite caught what happened with Jarl there, but unfortunately he's made it 3 from 3 and has DNF'd this one at the Zandvoort Grand Prix, which opens the door for Jeremy to close back into the fight for the top 3. So Jeremy Butlu had a difficult start to the race, but he's now bringing himself firmly back into contention again as he rapidly closes onto the back of Hani Al Sapte in third position, who himself is just 6/10 away from the fight from the lead. All is absolutely not lost for Jeremy Butlu in currently fourth, but I can foresee that changing very, very quickly over the course of the next 15 minutes and 23 seconds we've got left to run of what's been another really good esports sim racing activity. We're looking now, this is Hani Al Sapti in third place. At the moment, this is the guy under the most pressure. Hani won last time out in the Nürburgring sprint track, so fantastic result for Hani to go alongside his P4 from race 1, and he's needing a strong result if he's got to entertain any chance of being the overall 3-race Sunday champion here at the Sim Formula Europe. But it doesn't look like he's quite got the lap time in the car at this stage in the race at least, and Jeremy Butlu will be looking to put some significant pressure in order to get past Hani and up to the back of the Capit and Sierra fight that is currently raging at the front of the field. Can he do it? Will he do it? Can he make the pass cleanly? And will he use too much of the performance in his car before he gets there? That's a question, ladies and gents, that we will find out in the next 14 minutes and 15 seconds as the final race of our 3-race round comes to an end here in the Netherlands. And we're on board now with Risto Capit, who we were speaking about earlier, currently trying his uppermost to put Ziggy Sierra in the race lead under pressure. This is one of the most challenging corners for me personally when racing at Zandvoort. Very, very easy to run a little bit too wide onto the marbles and then get yourself into all sorts of strife, but everybody is experienced and good enough to avoid falling into that particular pitfall. It seems on this lap at the least, lap 7 we are on at this moment in time. We're running this race to time, so we're running it to 25 minutes, not laps. Keep your eye on the top left hand corner of the screen for a countdown of how long we've got remaining. It's 13 minutes 25 seconds at this moment in time, and so far, first half of the race, we've had these 4 cars even, I can't count, these 4 cars separated by practically nothing. It's anybody's for the winning heading into the final 13 minutes of the Zandvoort Grand Prix Sim Formula Europe 2020 final race. Lock tyres aplenty coming into the Tarzan hairpin as has become the norm in this race so far in the first 10 minutes and change, and we've still got line astern, much like often happens at Zandvoort. It's a very difficult circuit in which to overtake, and our guys are very much on the limit of what the car and themselves are capable of. And as I said in previous races, for the benefit as we hit quickly a replay, what are we going to be looking at here? We're looking at Jeremy Butlew back through the course. Nobody behind him at the moment, of course, because Jarl Teyen has retired, unfortunately for him, from the event for the 3rd time in a row. And a Sky Sports-esque, beautiful slow motion shot of the cars going up the hill, planting the throttle and plenty of horsepower down onto the tarmac. This is a guy that's got to start moving forward real quick, has Jeremy Butlew. He's driven well, he's driven sensibly so far during the course of this event, but if ever he needs to put his brains in his pocket and his feet on the pedals, today is that day for the young Frenchman Jeremy Butlew. He's looking now, this is an opportunity. The field is close, bunched together significantly into the enhanced chicane, coming into the final couple of sectors of the lap. It will be critical for the P4 car to get a clean run through the Ariel Lyondike corner, get the slipstream, the car in front as Haniel Sapti gets a little bit wide, has to get on the brake, but that unsettles Butlew behind, who has to run wide over the curb and onto the grass a little bit, loses some of that advantage that he was hoping to carry into T1, and that was an opportunity missed for a couple of our drivers in this fight now, as we're starting to see a little bit of pairing off. We're seeing Sierra and Capit up front starting to become a battle of two, while it seems like Haniel Sapti is taking a bit of a defensive position to Butlew behind him. So this will be curious to see if it continues like this, or if somebody's going to be the first to break through this barrier and start challenging further up. And look at the speed the cars carry through that section of the circuit. This is another real challenging corner, hard on the tyres, hard on the concentration. You want to make sure you keep a clean line, make sure you spot your braking point, touch the inside curb, just run it out nicely, keep the car as loose as possible through here. Be careful not to carry too much speed through the apex, as Haniel Sapti does carry a little bit too much speed, loses the rear end but manages to keep it under control, get the car back to the inside curb, protect the inside line, and yeah, that was a little bit spicy, but he live to fight another day. And now for Al Sapti, that's given him a 5/10 of a second disadvantage into the chicane from the front two drivers. So again, we mentioned earlier that P1 and P2 seem to be challenging each other quite strongly. P3 and P4 seem to be separated into their own little fight now for the final podium position of this race at Zandvoort. But obviously, overall race results are important for the drivers, but it's the grand finale championship positions that count the most. I am not good enough at mental arithmetic to do that, commentate and watch this broadcast at the same time, so I'm not even going to try. We'll wait till the race comes to its conclusion before we have that outcome written down. But fantastic racing nonetheless, and anything can happen in the last 9 minutes 22 seconds left on the clock, as Jeremy now is really looking to start moving up and around the back of Haniel Sapti's car in P3. Jeremy Butlew's thinking now is the time, now or never. He needs to make this overtake if he's going to have any chance of catching up with Risto Capit behind. We've said it once, we've said it twice, we've said it 100 times, and Murray Walker's famously coined that phrase. Catching is one thing, getting past is very much another, and can Jeremy Butlew do that now? He looks to the inside into a very difficult corner. That's a really late lunge. He manages to just get on the brakes and keep a little kiss onto the back of Hani Al Sabti in front. Al Sabti has to correct, but manages to keep the car on the circuit, so very, very close driving from both there, but Hani Al Sabti just about somehow manages to maintain his composure and keep the car pointing in the right direction. That was certainly a potential passing place, but a little bit enthusiastic from Jeremy Butlew in 4th position. Maybe a little bit of desperation coming in now, is knowing that he's only got 8 minutes left to move up through this field. He's got to make this pass within the next 2 laps if he's going to have any opportunity whatsoever to make inroads into the front 2 cars behind. The gap already is almost getting to the point where you would think it's going to be difficult to bridge that sort of ground in the time that we've got left. So Sabti outbrakes himself into Tarzan, runs really wide. Cars kiss each other side by side a couple of times, little love tap, just let him know you're there, who's the bravest. Into the second part of the corner, Al Sabti closes the line down, gives Butlew nowhere to go whatsoever. That puts Butlew out onto the grass and out of contention. Now that was a little bit aggressive driving, shall we say, from Hani Al Sabti. He opened the door, he ran too wide, left a Porsche size gap that Jeremy Butlew had absolutely no hesitation in putting his car into it, but then ran him out of road during the recovery. Here we see Al Sabti, although Butlew had a little bit of overlap. The front left was level with the right rear of Hani Al Sabti. The line was closed down, and neither driver looks to give an inch in that incident. A little bit of contact we've had there, and the end result is now a 2-second gap from Hani Al Sabti in 3rd to Risto Capit in 2nd, and Jeremy Butlew a little bit further afield now in 4th position. So that's broken up what would be a good fight in the last 6 minutes and 3/4 of a second, 6 3/4 of a minute even. But let's turn our attention to the race leaders. So Ziggy Sierra continues to lead this race, as he has done right from the green flag, from pole position. Ziggy Sierra really showing a fantastic performance at the front of the field. 11 laps, 12 laps now into the race, continues to lead from form man of the series, Risto Capit, in 2nd position. Risto's, we've seen him already, he's not afraid to put his car into risky positions for an overtake, but at this moment in time he's just not got enough pace to run himself up to the back of the car in front and give himself a chance to overtake. But further down in 4th, that little bit of contact and a little bit of excitement that we saw a lap or so ago seems to have fired up Jeremy Butlew. He's closed the almost a second gap to Hani Al Sabti, back down again in 3/4 of a lap, and he's already back to where he was before, looking to try and take that 3rd place as we watch race leaders now absolutely tooth and nail. Both drivers pulling each other along the Zandvoort Grand Prix circuit in the final 5.5 minutes. A beautiful slide there from Risto Capit, 4-wheel slide as he gets the power down to the big fat rear tyres on this Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car in R-Factor 2. And is it enough? Is it enough on a circuit that's difficult to pass? This is a reasonably viable overtaking opportunity as Ziggy gets a little bit out of control over the curbs into the first part of the chicane, compromises him down this very short straight as we head into the final 2 corners. Of course, these are going to be replaced for a bank turn when the Grand Prix comes later in the year in 2024, its debut, but at the moment in this configuration we've still got the long, difficult, almost never-ending final Arie Luyendyk corner, and Ziggy Sierra does just enough to maintain his composure, maintain his momentum, and keep hold of that race lead from an ever-closing Risto Capit. There we go again. Hani Al Sabti outbreaks himself in a Tarzan, manages to gather the car together in quite impressive fashion and just retains his advantage over Jeremy Bouteloup behind. Jeremy needs to really get up onto the rear of that Porsche and hope that he can pressure Al Sabti into a similar mistake, sneak into the gap and don't leave himself vulnerable like we saw a few laps ago that led to contact between the two cars. Fortunately, all cars survive and we've still got 4 of our 5 runners left in the race headed into the final 4 minutes, headed by your race leader, who has been right from the very beginning, the impressive Ziggy Sierra in first. We're riding on board now with Risto Capit in the Porsche. Risto looking at the race lead. He knows he'd probably done enough now to take the overall championship honours, but a racing driver is a racing driver. You see a race victory in front of you, you will grab that with both hands. It'll be interesting to see, does he risk a championship challenge for an overtake and a race victory? Is it worth that opportunity to have the bragging rights of coming out as a double race winner here at the Sim Formula Europe, or does he consolidate and maintain second position? There's a 1.8 second gap to Al Sabti in third behind him, so with 3 minutes on the clock he's probably safe from an attack behind, but Risto Capit may not be thinking of these sorts of things and be just looking desperately for a way past the way past the Porsche that you can see in front of it, as there's been both cars locking up into Tarzan up front. Looked a little bit like we'd seen some contact, but actually I think that's a trick of the camera. Both cars remain contact free, just pushing to the edge of the limits, and this is a gift that keeps on giving, this fight. Really enjoying the tense nature. Both drivers not made a mistake as far as I can see on screen so far. Both drivers absolutely perfectly positioning their cars on what is an incredibly difficult circuit, especially in a car such as this, which is a very difficult car to drive, as we see Capit a little bit wider than would be ideal into the behind. Actually, I'll interrupt myself for a moment as Jeremy Bouteloup now really starting to reel in and look for a way past Al Sabti. There'll be a little bit of needle between these two drivers, I am sure, after the contact that no doubt will be discussed after the race amongst us all. But Jeremy Bouteloup's got a little bit of something more than just honour and points to win here. He needs to prove a point to Al Sabti in front that he can overtake cleanly and get away in the lead and take those points away from his rival. But we've got fights all over the field, and these two have done, the third and fourth place cars have done a good job to start closing that gap to the front of the field back up again. So Ziggy Sierra is starting to become the bottle stop in the bottle at the moment in terms of lap time pace. And I think Risto Capit's ultimately got more speed in his car if he can only find a way past the Porsche in front, which at this rate is proven to be a very difficult task. Al Sabti there manages to spot his braking point accurately this time, so doesn't open up an opportunity for the car behind to overtake into Tarzan, which is arguably the best overtaking manoeuvre, best overtaking spot, should I say, on the Zandvoort Grand Prix circuit. So another 45 seconds on the clock. It's debatable whether these cars will be able to cross the line, or is this going to be the final lap, as Risto Capit now is less than 2/10 of a second away from the race lead. He's really giving everything he's got to try and take a last ditch race victory in the final of our 3 race events. Behind now, Jeremy Bouteloup really pushing again in P4, wants to get that third position off Hani Al Sabti and the points that it brings with it. And also we look further in front now, look past the car in front of the 2 race leaders. Risto Capit on the outside, on the inside, looking every square inch. This will be the final lap as we come into the Hans Ersch chicane. Risto Capit round the outside, tries to turn that to the inside for the second part of the chicane, runs a little bit late on the brakes, wide onto the curb. This is risky in a final lap with a championship on the line, but Risto Capit manages to maintain his position. My goodness me, that was a very challenging moment for all the drivers, but everybody behaved, kept it clean. Capit's a little bit slow off the bike of the second class corner into Aralayan Dyer, but he's got enough pace to keep second position. Ziggy Sierra crosses the line as race victor. Jeremy Loop behind manages to run up to the side of third place Al Sapti, but doesn't have enough, and the crowd go wild. The final race is over. It's a first victory for Ziggy Sierra. Risto Capit manages P2. Hani Al Sapti eventually crosses the line in third position, just fractions of a second in front of Jeremy Butlu in fourth, and sadly for Yael Tayan, another retirement, 3 from 3 in this, the third and final round of Sim Formula Europe 2020 here at the Interclassics in Maastricht. So, I hope you enjoyed that one, folks. I certainly did. A great way to round off 3 absolutely fabulous esport races. Really great driving throughout the field. Some very clean, fair, hard and fast racing. 5/10 there, the gap in the end between first and last, or first and fourth should I say. Beautiful driving from all concerned, and we're race control are just doing a little bit of arithmetic to see who is our eventual winner of the series. So as we mentioned earlier, there's points from first through to fifth position. No points for Yael, unfortunately, as a DNF. Over the course of the 3 races, whoever scores the most points will be the overall winner, and get some beautiful prizes as well. Stay tuned. So, Risto Capit celebrating. Well, not sorry, Risto Capit, I tell a lie. The race victory going to Ziggy Sierra. Soaked up the pressure from Risto Capit in absolutely beautiful circumstances. Drove incredibly well to keep the car in the perfect position throughout the course of the race. Never made a mistake, didn't miss a braking point, didn't miss an apex. Was a masterclass in absorbing pressure from Risto Capit behind. Although I must admit I was surprised to see Capit make a daring move into the chicane on the final lap when absolutely everything is still to go for, and got away with that a little bit, I would say. Capit did. Ran wide onto the rumble strips, or the sleeping policeman on the outside of the chicane, and that could have been the end of his challenge. So brave move from Risto Capit to try for the race victory and to cross the line. Unsuccessfully, unfortunately for him, but good to see the fighting spirit there. Rather than consolidating and looking at championship, going for a race victory. I love to see things like that, but not quite enough on the day to achieve it. So we're just waiting for the final results now to come through from race control, and I can tell you who's won our Sim Formula Europe 2020 3-race event. So just to recap real quick before we get on to the final results, we've had 3 races. Sebring School, 25 minutes. That was a tense but fabulous event in motion rigs on Sebring's, always an exciting experience. We then went to the Nürburgring, the sprint layout, for what was an absolutely fantastic 4-horse race at the front of the field, and we've wrapped up at the home of the 2020 Dutch Grand Prix, the Zandvoort circuit in the Netherlands, for the final, which I'm sure you will all agree was a very intense and very exciting event. 3 25-minute races, so just under an hour and a half's worth of esport action. And why are they racing? These guys, these esport drivers, are racing for a €10,000 prize pool. So when we announce our winner, who's on your screen as Risto Capit with 46 points. Risto Capit is our Sim Formula Europe 2020 champion. Absolutely fantastic performance from Capit there to take away a race victory, a second place finish and a third place finish, and overall champion. Beautiful result for Risto Capit. Ziggy Sierra stayed under the radar for much of the event, but still came through in P2 on 39 points to earn himself a €2,000 prize and a set of Huisgenveld Sim Pedal Sprint. Hani Al Sapti rounds out the finishing podium in third position with a €1,000 prize and a set of Huisgenveld pedals. Jeremy Butloop had a fourth place finish, and Jarl Teyen, unfortunately never scored a finish during the event, is 5th overall. Brilliant driving from everybody concerned, and I hope very much that you've enjoyed these 3 races at Sim Formula Europe. I know we certainly have, and we'll be giving a podium ceremony and prize giving in just a short while, so please do stay tuned. And yes, that's been 3 very good fun races. I've enjoyed every moment of it. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned for the podium and prize giving, and we will be back in 1 moment. Test, 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 test. Hey folks, welcome back. So we're going to talk to a few of our drivers here today. Honey, P3 overall, how'd that go?
Well, didn't go as planned, but I'm happy with P3. It was a tie with P2 and P3. Eventually, he scored more points for doing a better qualifying.
You've been in the heart of the action for a lot of the racing. Difficult tracks to pass on, difficult cars to drive. How have you found that from a racing perspective?
The car was really difficult to drive, and then you have the motion rake making it even difficult. So we were struggling to get a good feeling for the brakes. That's all about, this car is all about the brakes. And yeah, adapting to the rig also is part of the game. As you could see, Risto and Jeremy, they adapt really quick and are pretty much faster than the rest of us.
It's been interesting to do 3 rounds we've done today, so 3 very different circuits. How do you prepare for something like that before coming to an event like this? 3 very different challenges.
Practice, I guess. You can't really prepare for it. I mean, you can try and make a setup for each track, do a lot of laps, and hope for the best.
So you've shown really good pace throughout the course of the event. What would be the event highlight for you?
I really like the format of this event. We have one qualifying, 3 races, and the second race being a reverse grid. That's really the best way, in my opinion, to do events, I guess.
Annie, brilliant. We've really enjoyed you watching your race as always, and hope to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's Hani Al-Sapte, who finished third today. I would say joint second in the points. And we're going to send somebody else up in a few moments to have a little chat with us and introduce themselves to you on camera and talk about our event. Hi.
Hi.
So, the race is over. Where did you finish?
Well, I finished second.
Second, fantastic. And how did that feel? Did you enjoy the race, the highlights that you got there?
Well, I can say I enjoy really the final result because I really wasn't expect that.
I said on stream that you've kind of gone under the radar a little bit for the first couple of races. Thought great end results and everything, but to come home second overall, that must be that a tactic? Is that a strategy to go in there and just score points rather than go for the outright victory or more circumstance?
I think it's everything. Everything counts. The skill, the preparation, setup of the car, and the strategy. Oh.
Everything came together really well for the final race. Did that surprise you a little bit, the amount of speed that you had over the rivals?
Well, to be honest, I knew in the Maastricht where was a qualifying session I can make a decent time, but I wasn't expecting to win the last race at Zandvoort because this is my worst track, to be honest. I really don't like it.
You soaked up a lot of pressure in the final stage of that race. From Risto behind was very obviously keen to overtake and take, especially on the last lap. That must have been heart in mouth, surely.
Well, the advantage of the Zandvoort track is that it's really hard to overtake. So if you go through the first lap without any mistake on the first position, then you can dictate the pace of the race.
Yeah, and obviously this Zandvoort's kind of circuit where a very small mistake can lead to a very big accident, so keeping that kind of pace, the pressure from the cars behind, satisfying result?
Definitely satisfying result. Probably this was the most difficult race in my whole career so far.
Wow, really. And second overall, so brilliant, well done, good drive, and again we hope to see you again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Round of applause from the audience there. Thank you very much. And we're swapping mics, which is very exciting. So, final person, our event winner. 3 races, 1 championship. Risto, come on through. Superb performance, very scary. Last lap at the chicane, heart in mouth moment.
Yeah, well, the whole race I knew exactly what the score system is, so I knew I didn't have to risk it, but I was getting closer and closer to push him into the mistake, and I saw that Hani and Jeremy were racing behind, so I had some gap to try, go for it, just to make sure that I could say that I gave it a try. So I gave it a try, I went a bit wide, but managed to get back to the track, so nothing lost there. So yeah, it was good fun, it was quite under control, I would say.
And we've spoken previously and on stream about the format, 3 races, same, very difficult car, 3 very difficult tracks. How did you find that format from a competitor's point of view?
Well, like you could see from the final results, we were separated by a few points, so I think the format itself is really good. We were fighting, all 4 of us, not too many of us, but all fighting together, so the smallest mistake, like Jeremy outbreaking himself into turn 1 last race, made all the difference, so it was very competitive, and even if we knew last race, I knew my position, I didn't have to overtake, I was still battling the car. In these weeks, you are very tired already, especially the first race, the settling was the hardest. You were tired the whole way, and you were really trying to keep it on track. Like you said, it's a hard track, and all the fast, long corners, it was very intense.
And as a competitive e-sport driver, in a competition where there's a big prize at the end of it, running second in the last couple of laps, knowing that you don't need to make the overtake, how hard is that in your mind to know that you want to try and pass, but do it, to make the decision, do you or don't you do that?
Well, making the decision is easy. I consider myself that I'm able to think during driving, but yeah, it took a lot of my concentration to not think about it too much, because once you get the pressure off, then you start making mistakes. But yeah, it was the maybe main challenge of the last race, but it was manageable.
Brilliant. Well, fantastic result, fantastic day of driving. Congratulations on the victory. Risto Capit, everybody, our champion for Sim Formula Europe. All you guys at home, stay with us, stay tuned. We'll be doing our podium celebration very, very shortly.
Fifth and fourth?
Yeah.
And we're back again with the podium celebration. So we've got Andy Masson presenting the prize for 5th position, who is Jarl. If you can come and step right up for us, please, Jarl. So we've had... he's on his way now for our 5th place finisher. Round of applause, please, for Jarl. And then Andy will also be presenting for our 4th place finisher. So Jeremy, if we could ask you to step up, please, for 4th. So that's our 5th and 4th place finishers. I'm going to hand you over to Andy now for the final 3 drivers of Sim Racing Europe 2020.
Yeah, we're going to do the last 3. Marcel Overmans from Arfact themselves going to pronounce the 3rd prize. Hani El Sabti, Dutch competitor. Hani, can you come in front? You won the 3rd prize. Please, please come.
Congratulations.
And also Hani gets the Heusingveld sprint set and the perfect prize. And that's not the champagne, but as well champagne from Maastricht, because we were in Maastricht. And then there it is. He works all weekend for it. A $1,000 prize. Hani, thank you very much. Make a good weekend. Now for the 2nd prize, all the way from Poland. Zibi, I'm not gonna announce your first name, that's not good for us. Yeah, his last name is Sia. Here he is, give him a big applause. Zibi. And some time for Enter Classics. We have Eric Panis, our director from Enter Classics. Eric, thank you very much that you're here. 2nd prize, also the Heusingveld pedal set. The champagne from Maastricht. It's your congress, and if you say yes, we do it, no problem. And 2,000 euros also for Zibi. Yeah! Give him a big round of applause. Here it goes. And now, the first prize. Please give him a great applause. Here he is, all the way from Estonia. Risto Kapet. Man, Risto, you have a great job. Great weekend, great races. And the first prize is from the local mayor from Maastricht, Vivian Heijnen. Vivian, be careful, cause that's nice from champagne from Maastricht. And there it is, 3,000 euros. He made it, yay! A great round of applause. Where's the carpet? Where's the carpet? And now, Eric, do we spend the champagne on stage? I think. Hani, Zibi, come with the champagne. I think I'm gonna run, but you can spread it if you want to.
Oh no.
Then we drink it. Thank you very much. I think we're gonna close the live live stream. Paul, thank you very much for today. Great job. Do you want to say something? Because I'm not so good in live streaming. I think it's your job.
Now the risky pronunciations are over because I'm not very good at that side of things. Thank you everyone here for watching. Really enjoyed it. Thank you everybody at home for tuning in. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you to Studio 397, everybody involved in making this. It's been an awesome experience. It's been fabulous e-sport. We've enjoyed. The drivers have done us proud for our hobby, our industry, our sport. And as always, I'm very proud to be involved in it. I hope it's been as entertaining for everybody at home and in the audience as it has been for me behind the desk under the boiling red hot floodlights. And we hope to see you all again soon. Thank you for tuning in. And till next time, we'll all see you a little bit later on. Thank you.